Hello everyone, I've got the new iPhone 13 and what I'm going to do is some cinematic shots with my yellow Prowler and then also some macro shots with my yellow Prowler as well because I just got it detailed when I dropped off my car at Young Steele's Ford Lincoln. Personal Touch Car Cleaning 2.0 on Instagram. They did such an amazing job. My Prowler has never had as little dust ever. It's usually filthy, so I want to get some nice close-up shots of it. First thing, starting with the cinematic mode, you can only shoot in 30 frames a second, and then you can't go to the widest and you can't like switch between lenses while you're doing it. You need to edit everything in your phone on what point you wanted it to focus on, but you can leave little like keyframes and stuff, so it's kind of easy to do. And then to get it off your phone, you need to go to Photos, go to your cinematic album, and then you need to click Process at the bottom. But then if you download it, it's going to be in HDR. So what you need to do is import it to iMovie and then export it, and then when you export it in Options, turn off HDR, and that's how you can get it as a normal video once you're done filming it onto your computer or whatever. Then with all the macro stuff, I've uploaded the video to my YouTube, so I'm just going to comment over it while we watch it back. So first clip, starting on a little chip I have in my hood, panning all the way out, and you can see where it came from. And that was a really good shot because it started very close up to the point where you couldn't see what it was. And I'm just gonna pause right after there. Okay. What I'm doing is filming in 60 frames a second because that way it locks to your camera and you can't zoom in as much and it feels more stable, and then you can slow it down because you need that little bit of slowing down. Next clip, what do you think that is? Take your guesses. Was that Mars? The moon? No, that's a little chip in my steering wheel. Very cool shot. Honestly, I don't think you could get that shot with pretty much anything else. And the other cool thing about these cameras are you have very little depth of field in your macro, so you can actually see stuff from a long distance instead of it just being super blurry, which makes it look less like crappy macro. Do you know what I mean? Which makes it more interesting, but you just need to have a lot of light. And then this is the 3 with the gauge going by on my odometer tack. Like, that was cool, the zoom and everything. I really like that. This going down the Plymouth badge on the hood of my car, very close up. And then what I do after this is also slow it down even more in Twixtor. So this was already 60 frames a second in half. This is, I think, 60 frames a second in half, and then Twixtor to another 20%. So if you actually needed to get a long close-up of something, this would actually work really well. Like, I'm very, very, very pleasantly surprised with these results. Like, you don't even realize like where the paints are, where the chips are when you're not in macro. It actually just looks perfectly fine. And when you get close up, you see all these weird imperfections, which are awesome. Okay, what's this in my car? Can you guess? No, that is the little pattern on the shifter. And there's the auto stick thing. Like, I didn't even realize what that pattern looks like. You look at it from a distance, you're like, I don't know, it's got a texture, but that's what it actually looks like. Okay, now this is a weird one. This is filming in 24 frames a second. So everything is kind of shaky. And then I stabilize it, so it's stabilized here. I'm gonna pause it and go back. It stabilizes on the key and on the key fob, because the clip without stabilization, the background is like very solid and the front thing is moving, which is actually a really cool effect. And these are like the only clips I filmed, some of the only clips I filmed in 24 frames a second that actually kind of looked interesting. But like, look at all the scratches on the key. That's a cool effect. But yeah, filming 60 frames a second. Okay, this is a close-up of what? The tire. Got my shadow in it a bit. That's kind of tricky to avoid, but you can see the warp stabilizer on that. And this is also in 24 frames a second, trying to go slow. If I refilm this in 60, it would be so much better. But you know, I'm just testing it out. But it's cool to see all like the grooves and details close up in a tire that you just like take for granted, just assume are there. Yes, a lot of warp stabilizer on 24 frames a second footage again. But I like starting close on stuff and then hitting it with the zoom out. And this is my 1999 sticker on the inside of my door panel. That's kind of cool. That's a cool shot. And this is on a slider, I think, on my one of those monopod slider kind of things. It kind of worked all right. The slider's a little sketchy, it's a little shaky, so I don't think I'm ever gonna use it. This is handheld again, 60 frames a second on the rear bumper. And that's pretty much the most perfect smooth shot that I could want. And this is it slowed down even more. I think half, where the other one was just normal speed. I mean, that's a really good shot that you can't get with like most cameras easily, especially not one that's your phone. So overall, how would I rate the macro on this? 10 out of 10. This is friggin' awesome. I'm gonna get the coolest shots. I've already got a bunch of cool shots in upcoming Durango SRT video. And then cinematic mode, cool gimmick. I think once they update it to 24 frames a second, it'll be better. But yeah, I mean, it's fun, it's interesting. It'll definitely be cool to use sometimes if you want to blur your background or whatever. I think that's kind of the best way. But before I end it, I'm going to quickly show, and I'm going to screen record, how the cameras change when you're in 24 frames a second 4K, and how it changes when you're in 60 frames a second 4K for macro stuff, and why you should film all your macro stuff in 4K 60. Let me get an action figure. Okay, within reach I've got Queen Amidala, because I have a huge Star Wars collection, and 4K 60, pressing 0.5, recording, and then do all your shots there. And if you want to zoom in and out, you have less range, but everything looks better. So here I can get close and back onto this Queen Amidala doll, because I do have a bunch of Star Wars toys, because I'm a toy collector. So if I did that on 4K 24, so if I go down, you'll see switch right there. From the normal 1x camera to the macro camera. The macro camera is the wide lens, which is the top one. So see when it's in macro, if I cover it. And then this is your normal lens. So if I get close, I can zoom into like 9 times, but it's so crappy. And then my zooms out aren't as good, and the whole footage isn't as smooth. And if I try to hold it in the air, everything is much shakier. But if I try to hold that in the air on 4K 60, it's smoother. Or at least I can smooth it by slowing it down. At least in my head it feels smoother. More of a chance to stabilize it. And for all you bros out there, here's a shot of my lizard toy that I've had since I was a kid on 4K 60. Like, how cool is that? So would I recommend the new iPhone? Only if you're super into macro stuff. Otherwise, the last one was good, and even the one before that was good. But since we do a car show and we use it all the time for everything, for macro stuff too now, would highly recommend. Subscribe to my channel for home tech reviews, some camera tech reviews, straight pipes for car reviews, and gardening stuff, kind of action figures. Pretty much subscribe to my channel if you like me, but don't hit the notification bell. I don't want you to get mad when I post something about toys and you're only into lawn mowing.